Good evening. We're here today to talk about the push versus the pull in weightlifting. It's very important when you're weightlifting to make sure that to emphasize using your legs and not your back or your hips, because we want to emphasize jumping straight up into the air versus jumping back or pulling on the bar backwards. This will further emphasize using the quadriceps and not the hips to finish the lift. So when we go into our extension, we want to make sure that we're extending straight up using the big muscles in the front of our legs versus our glute muscles and our low back muscles, which would look something like this versus this. It's a small difference, but it's very important once you get down the road. Some common errors that you'll see people make, which typically indicate, although they can have other causes, lifting with the back or lifting with the hips versus just using your legs off the floor. So the first one we'll talk about is using the hips, your hips raising first off the floor. So Rebecca's going to demonstrate what that looks like when her hips raise first off the floor. So her hips come up, and then it's very hard. I can ask Rebecca, she's going to demonstrate from the side. And on this one, Rebecca, just let your hips rise up and then pause at the knee for a second. And you can see almost immediately she starts to shiver because it's such a difficult position to hold. And that's a strong indication that if she does it again, but this time her chest goes first and she's going to pause at the knee, you'll see that it's a stronger position and she can hold it much longer. Okay, that's great. Thanks. So another indication that you're probably going to complete the lift with your back or your hips, or you've started the lift off the floor with your hips and your back, is that your arms are bent. Oftentimes, when you lift with your back or your hips off the floor, your body will try to compensate for proximity, for the bar being so far away, by trying to bend the arms and bring the bar closer to your body. So Rebecca's going to demonstrate what that looks like. If she breaks off the floor with her back first, sometimes exactly right. The arms will bend, and it's very difficult, almost comically so, to get the bar into the right position. You want to demonstrate that from the sides as well? And the arms bend. Yeah, exactly right. So those are two really strong indications that you're using your back and not your legs to do the lift. In other words, you're pulling and you're not pushing. Two other indications or errors that you'll see that could be because you're using your back more than your legs are that you're jumping forward in a lift or you're missing behind. I want to ask Rebecca to demonstrate these because they're kind of dangerous, but typically what happens is you jump forward, it likely means that the bar was kind of out in front of you and you tried to bring your hips to it and you used your back and your hips rather than just jumping straight up in the air. If you bring your hips to the bar like this, you oftentimes will jump forward. And same thing with missing behind. Oftentimes somebody who misses a lift behind, it's because they tried to throw their hips at the bar, they jumped forward, and then they over-pulled the bar and it went behind them. And another one I've just thought of that's not on the board is if you're making really aggressive contact with the bar to the point that it hurts, oftentimes that means that you've over-exaggerated using your hips rather than using your legs to push. So we'll move on now to some ways to practice using your legs versus your back at home. So one really good exercise that we use a lot with my weightlifters is that we do mid-thigh jumps to a target. So you can do these to a target or you can just do them straight up in the air, but effectively all you're going to do is go down to mid-thigh, where your bar would sit for mid-thigh, and then you're going to jump straight up in the air as aggressively and as quickly as you can. And all you're doing here, you want to try one from the side as well? Mid-thigh and jump. Yeah. And all you're trying to do here is just get your body as extended as possible to practice that driving with the legs. Because if Rebecca does a mid-thigh jump from hang and exaggerates using her hips versus her back, you'll see she doesn't get quite as high, and it's kind of an awkward movement. So she didn't know I was going to ask her to do that. Another one we're going to try to do, I have my weightlifters do, is called straight leg box jumps. And basically what we're going to do with these is practice using our legs to extend and get our hips and feet as high up in the air as possible so we can land with almost straight legs. So this one just looks like this, and we land with straight legs. The idea is to jump up and land softly onto the bench. You can do those as very, very low. Sometimes I'll even have people just do them with as low as 2 black 45-pound plates. And then the last exercise we can go over is a first pull with a broomstick. So for these, you're going to go down to the floor or mid-shin position, your setup, and you're just going to push slowly and controlled up to the knee if you want to stop there, and you can just do reps from the floor to the knee. And what you're just looking for is making sure that your toes stay locked to the floor, that you're driving with your hip, your quads off the ground, and your back angle doesn't change very much. And Rebecca will demonstrate from the side. You can just see that her shoulders are raising at the same time as her hips. You want to do one where your hips raise first, so their hips come up first and then her back's flat. That's good. Great. And you can practice those. You can go floor to knee, or you can come all the way up to the top of the lift and then practice your extension. But it's just really important to take your time with these and make sure that you're doing them correctly and focusing on building strong mechanics rather than reinforcing bad habits. So just to reiterate, one main focus in weightlifting is making sure that we're extending through the quadriceps vertically up into the air rather than horizontally with the back and the hips. And to do that, what we want to do is make sure that we're breaking off the floor with our whole foot shoved into the ground and focusing on pushing with our feet and our quads, and sort of thinking about extending our knees rather than using our back and our hips to open up. I hope you guys found this video informative, and if you have any questions, feel free to send us a message.